Hello, everybody. Are you guys ready to start the best session at JNUC today? All right. I am your session host, so that means I will be running around the room at the end of the session to get your questions. But first, let's bring up the presenters. With me today, I have Adam Derrick and David Goldberg to talk to you about app installers.
Awesome. Awesome, thanks, Ashley. Ashley is probably the best session host to have for this session. So yes. She will be listening to the feedback coming from you all. Hi, hope everybody had a wonderful time last night at the food hall. Anybody not have fun? Good. It's crazy to believe today's the last day of JNUC, but yeah, appreciate you coming and joining our session this morning. My name's Adam Derrick. I'm a field sales engineer here at Jamf. Been with the company about 5.5 years. Prior to that, I had some stints in healthcare as well as higher education, and Apple certified Mac and iOS professional. Been doing this stuff for the last 16 years. It's my pleasure to introduce David Goldberg. Now I'll let Dave take it.
Hi, I'm Dave Goldberg. I'm with Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, up in Newark, New Jersey. I've been a customer of Jamf through many jobs, going all the way back to 2007. And it's been more than 2 decades since I've been in this business. So thank you.
So you go back to the Casper days.
I go back to the Casper days. Casper, absolutely.
Oh, so you probably had some fun with imaging back then.
Yes, yes. Thankfully, imaging is long dead.
Cool. So here's our agenda for this morning. We're going to talk about Jamf App Installers and what are they? Is anybody in the room, show of hands, anybody using the Jamf App Catalog and Jamf App Installers? Okay, about half the room. That's awesome, awesome. We're going to be going through common pain points in packaging, deploying apps. We're going to go through a demo of the Jamf App Catalog, and we're also going to talk about some of the limitations as well as the applications that are supported and what you can do if there's an application that is not supported. So, who loves this graphic right here?
Who loves to package? Who loves creating packages?
Said nobody ever.
Said nobody. There's a few good friends of mine that love to package. They're few and far between. But no, I hate packaging. Always had. Very time-consuming process.
So, yeah, like Dave mentioned.
Just said, yes.
You know, they're very time-consuming. Just some of the very common pain points. Limited ability to update, you know. If a new version of an app becomes available, you gotta essentially just rebuild that package from the ground up. And all of us are juggling multiple responsibilities on top of managing Jamf and managing these Macs. Why do we want to invest even more time into repackaging something that maybe tomorrow is just gonna get another update? Mac unfriendly installers, you want to talk a little bit about your experience with that, Dave?
Yeah, there's a certain company, it starts with the letter A. Particularly that company that 7 or 8 years ago, even grabbing a package from the admin console from that would cause, you would have to repackage that and recompress it. And the uploads and the downloads would take hours. And they would fail sometimes. And then you would have to do all of that all over again. So yes, there were a bunch of companies with Mac unfriendly installers that we would have to repackage, either going back to Composer, or you're going to see a lot of those logos in a second, or even just using the package utility commands to decompress, make your changes, and then flatten. So.
Awesome. So, you know, some common deployment methods, obviously packages are number one. And, you know, back when the App Store was introduced, we thought that was going to be our saving grace and every single Mac application was going to be in the App Store. But we know all too well that very common applications, I'll name just a couple: Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Microsoft Teams, Zoom,
Slack.
They're all applications that in the iOS App Store are there, but not in the macOS App Store. And then you have your third-party deployment tools. In this case, a very popular little monkey up there.
I was going to say someone we have shared ancestry with, as opposed to the name, but yes, there's a cute little monkey there.
Cool. Dave, you want to talk a little bit about maybe like what life was like prior to the Jamf App Catalog and Jamf App Installers?
So prior to the app catalog, going back, I mean, obviously, if you want to go way back, CDs and floppy disks or anything, but let's assume that we've all lived in the cloud world for some time. We would have to go get that installer from the cloud, right there. And then we would have to get the installer. And sometimes it would be a package, sometimes it would be a disk image. A lot of Mac applications to this day are still just a file copy to your applications folder as opposed to an installer. So whatever you would grab from that, mostly either a disk image or a package, you would then have to repackage. If you could not upload the current package directly from the vendor site up to your Jamf Pro instance. Again, as the years have gone by, that has gotten better. Most vendors now have packages where, for the most part, unless you need to change something like, I don't know, maybe add a system extension, you would then have to work on that. But for the most part, you can just download, upload to your JSS, and then create your policy. And then, after all that, upload to the mothership. And depending on how big that is, that could take quite a while, whether either it's on-prem or in the cloud. Depending on what it is, it could take a long while, a couple of hours at least. And then you have that package, you've named it, you've described it, you've got a category to it, and then we just add it to a policy, and then you could scope, and then from your policies, you just scope out to your wonderful MacBook Pro or any other Mac device. That was prior to app installers. Now see how many different steps that was right there. I mean, that's 6 steps right there. With app installers, there's going to be a lot less icons on this slide. With app installers, Jamf actually, the cloud or Jamf itself actually talks to the vendors, talks to Adobe, talks to Microsoft, talks to Git, and gets the latest installer from that vendor in the cloud. Once we do that, all we have to do then is create a repository from whatever app is, that is available. Let's say Slack, for example. So they have Slack available. We create a repository, and then set up your scope to whatever smart group you want to send that to, and then that will come down in a manage command, and then right to the MacBook Pro. So yes, it was 5 as opposed to 6, but those actions went from hours to maybe a minute to set all that up.
Yeah, and it's super helpful because if you have an application, Google Chrome as an example, that's updating multiple times a week, we source that package for you. We scan that package for any kind of security exploits or anything like that, and then we make it available to you within minutes. So any endpoints that you have, you could actually, and you'll see this here once we get into the demo, but you could go ahead and you could choose whether or not you want that application to be patched automatically, I'd say most people that I work with, they are having the applications patch automatically. There are some applications that you may or may not want to be patched automatically, but what's really great is once we dive into this, you'll see how you could customize the notifications, the frequency, the deadlines that you could enforce. So you could say, hey, there's an update to Chrome. I'm going to give you 2 days to go ahead and update that before it's going to go ahead and force the install of that update.
And how many of you have this is your multiple JNUCs, not your first time. And if you were to go back even 5 years, 4 years, one of the main pain points, one of the main things that we begged Jamf is application patch management. All right, ever since Jamf brought, was it Mondata? And
yeah, and the Kenobi platform.
And the Kenobi platform, we begged them to have patch management because before the app installers, before any of this, Jamf would just say, yep, there's an update, go get it yourself.
Yeah, I actually, when I worked in higher ed, I was at the Penn State Mac Admins Conference, and Jamf had an expo there, and I walked up to Sam Weiss, who's a fellow Jamf, and I was like, hey, Sam, I'm like, talk to me about patching. And he was just like, gave me like a frown and was just like, there's not really anything going on with patching. So when Jamf did acquire Mondata and absorbed Kenobi, that really opened up, everything that you're going to see here today. And we understand, the Jamf app catalog has been out now for about 2 years. We started out with just a handful of applications, and you'll see here in a few moments where we're at. We're just under 200 applications now.
100 vendors.
Yeah.
About 100 vendors.
And when we know that the app catalog absolutely is not perfect, we know that there's a lot of customer feedback and customer improvements that need to be made. And we'll talk about some of that stuff here in a little bit, but.
Oh, will we?
But yeah, I mean, even if you're using the app catalog to just, update some of your base applications, you're saving time, you're providing a better end user experience.
All of that gone. Okay.
So like I mentioned before, common apps such as Teams, Slack, Zoom, Chrome, Edge, and Adobe are not available in the App Store. So, we all love the App Store. It's a great tool. However, the app catalog is definitely going to solve the problem that, that's lying out there, that most of these very common applications are just not in the App Store for whatever reason that may be. So introducing the Jamf app catalog.
Before we do that, does anybody love the VPP process? Okay, I have had nothing but brawls with Apple and VPP. Even before the catalog was available, it's always been quite a tedious process. Like, for example, I deploy Xcode, which is free, and yet I have to put in a number of licenses for that, even though it's free, because Apple is going to Apple. So now we have the Jamf app catalog, and you're about to see a lot of these right now. Bear with me, I was a graphic designer in my former life. I love logos. But this is how big the catalog is. And it's growing every single day. When we made this, there's 177 apps. There are a little less than 200 now. Here we go, as page after page, and a lot of you know these apps, a lot of you know these logos. I'm going to go even quicker now, because it is the last day of Jamf. Like JNUC, rather. Wait, let me go back. See? Okay. Here are the limitations.
Yeah.
Okay, I will absolutely do this. There is a bunch of limitations, and anybody who's used the app catalog, I'm not going to be telling you anything new. But the first bullet point that I want to highlight is lack of a progress bar. When we scope out to a specific smart group, and you're going to see how we do that in a second, it basically says pending, installing in progress, and then completed. That's it. Okay, if it fails, we don't know why. But even more maddening is we don't know how long that's going to take. And again, with app catalog, Jamf doesn't, we're talking over 100, around 100 vendors. So every vendor does things differently. Every vendor provides installers differently, legal, all that stuff. So there's a lot of moving parts there. As a result, it's very, very, very limited in terms of the information you get on how long a app will come down. And it can vary. It can be 20 minutes. It can be 3 to 4 hours with 2 machines side by side on the same network. And going into that, there's not really much of any logs. Certainly not a completed log. Certainly not a log that can actually even break it down to the group that you've scoped. And no really verbose error log at all. So you really don't know why it's taking so long, or you don't know why, or you just can't plan ahead in terms of, can you be confident like this is going to come down in an hour as opposed to 3 hours?
Dave, I'm curious, like, how long have you been using the Jamf App Catalog? I've
been using the Jamf App Catalog since maybe about 2 weeks after it came out.
Okay, so you were one of the early adopters. I'm just curious, out of that list of almost 200 applications, how many apps are you using from the app catalog?
I would say a good 75% of my applications on all my Mac endpoints are coming from the app catalog.
Wow.
That is 75% of the time that I didn't have to package. That's 75% of the time, with the exception of a couple apps, that I didn't have to worry about updating, about patching those apps. So it has saved so much time and added so much productivity to my whole team, to the industry.
That's great. Good stuff.
Yeah, and there's really no scheduling. Like, you can't say, all right, deploy this app at this time when you know this machine will be there. That functionality just isn't there yet. The scoping mechanism is different. You're going to see that in a second. But because it's a managed command, where it basically is saying, okay, here it is. I'm getting this from the vendor. Here's a managed command, sending it down. It's not like a policy where you can just send the installer to the temp folder and then it just installs like we've done for many, many years. As a result, it's not very, it takes some learning to get to do it, because
it's not Jamf-like. So, you build out a policy, you build out a config profile in Jamf Pro, or you deploy an app from the App Store. And we have the all familiar scope tab, and we could scope it to all devices, or we could pick what smart groups we wanted to go to, or enter groups. You'll see here in a few moments, it's different. Scoping, there is no scoping mechanism. There's a deployment mechanism. But I will say that us at Jamf, we are aware of that it's been a very common feature request. And like I mentioned, the app catalog, it definitely needs a little bit of time to mature. So we're definitely aware of that. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe when we're on the stage next year, seeing how all you are enjoying the app catalog, maybe we'll have a scoping mechanism. Who knows?
Well, these last 2 bullet points, if there's any Jamf engineers in there, you don't have to identify yourself, but hear my words. Please allow us to scope to multiple groups. So even if it's smart groups, please allow us to install to multiple groups. That will save us so much time. And the last bullet point, please give us uninstallers. Right now, there's really no easy way to uninstall an app from the app catalog. Some apps like Adobe or stuff, they will install an uninstaller with the Creative Cloud apps, but most don't. Now, some of them are just in the application. You can just get rid of that, but not everybody does that, as you know. We've got to go to library, application support, preferences, that sort of thing. It's a manage command to install. There should be a manage command to reverse that process and uninstall when we need it. I'm oversimplifying, I know, but please hear us when we say, please give us the uninstallers.
So Dave, I have a question for you. When you mentioned that 75% of your applications now are being deployed through the Jamf App Catalog, what was that process like when you enabled the App Catalog and you deployed those applications? Like, was there any kind of interaction that the end users saw on their computer, or like just for anybody in the room who might, let's just say they're deploying Chrome or Adobe or something like that. What is that? What does it look like?
There's two ways to deploy it. We can have it in self-service, and they can install it on their leisure. But I do not trust my end users, so I have it installed automatically. It's in the background. They do not have any end user interaction at all. It just appears. So when we are enrolling these machines and we're building them, and we have it scoped to all these applications in the app catalog, we'll literally just put the application window on time modified column and just wait for them to come down. It's as simple as that.
That's cool.
So absolutely. So this next sport, anyone using the app catalog, anyone that's going to use the app catalog, this is one of the most important slides. Please submit a feature request. Not only for the pain points that we just mentioned, but if there's an app that's not there, please submit a feature request. They do look at that. I promise you they do. I've submitted dozens this year alone. But please get to know that URL.
Yeah, jamf.it/software titles. That will take you right to the updated list. So that will be a direct link that will take you to the guide of all the software titles that exist in the app catalog. If you see an app that's not on there, that's where we would want you to either submit a feature request or upvote an existing feature request. Comments are always welcome for how this will help you. Ashley, the session host, we were just talking couple minutes before this session, and she's like, I've been diving deep into those feature requests. So it's not like it was before when the feature requests were out on Jamf Nation and they just sat there. We do have people who are actively reviewing the feature requests. We actually switched over to a new platform called AHA. That can be accessed at ideas.jamf.com. It's a really nice tool because as an SE, like if I'm working with Dave and I'm on a call with Dave and Dave has a feature request, I could search the feature requests and I could like tag Dave's account internally, which is pretty cool. Also, it's really easy inside of Jamf Pro to submit a feature request. Something a lot of people don't know of, at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little purple icon. That's the Resource Center. So in the Resource Center, you could submit a feature request. You could submit a support ticket. You could also access things like the training catalog. So definitely check out that Resource Center. I know sometimes you have those little pop-ups popping up, asking you questions, and you ignore that. But the Resource Center is a really nice place for you to go if you want to submit a feature request.
And I did not know that until this meeting, that you can actually get there via your Jamf Pro instance.
Yeah.
So we're now going to show you exactly how this works. We're going to go into a Jamf Pro instance. I'm going to hand this over to Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially what I have here is a demo showcasing how to deploy an application. In this particular case, we're going to deploy Microsoft Teams via the app catalog. We're going to talk about that scoping mechanism or deployment mechanism, as well as setting notifications. So to access the app catalog, you just go to computers, and then you go down here to Mac apps. So this is new. Before we had the App Store in there. So you'll see the Jamf App Catalog, which shows all my apps that I currently have, as well as their deployment status, and what groups they're scoped to. But you'll also see the App Store up there at the top. So we're going to go head on over to New, and we're going to choose the Jamf App Catalog because we're not deploying via VPP at the moment here. So we're going to select Next, and here you'll see the list of software titles. Like I mentioned, we have a little under 200 software titles at the moment. So just scrolling through here, you can see Adobe takes up a good chunk of that page. But you could scroll through here. We even have a search. So if you want to search for an application, you could just go ahead and search as well. Like I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and grab Microsoft Teams. So when you do want to go ahead and grab an application, in this case, I'm searching for Teams. You're just going to select that Add button there on the side. You'll see it's going to pull in the application. You could assign a category if you're using categories within Jamf Pro. The target group is the deployment method. So instead of seeing scope, I have that set to go to all my devices. Your distribution method, do you want it to install automatically, or do you want it to be made available in the self-service portal? And then the update method, do you want Jamf to automatically patch that app for you, or do you want it to be a manual process? And then you'll see all the app installer metadata down here at the bottom. So you'll see the vendor is Microsoft. It gives you the source file, URL. It's letting us know the date that package was published. And then here on this tab, this is where we could customize the end user experience. So we could say, hey, I want the end user to get a notification every 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and enforce an update deadline of 2 hours. Force quit message. So this has come a long way, and we're always adding new stuff in here. But you'll see here we got the deployment status. So here I could see I have 5 computers that are qualified for this application. I could see the status. So right now, all these computers are in progress. Once Microsoft Teams would install, it'll go to completed. So we do have some useful information. Again, we don't have that verbose error log or anything like that, but it took us, 2 minutes to go ahead and deploy Microsoft Teams there. Very, very simple process.
Now, there's a couple things that I want to impress upon all of you with this. I started this, as Adam said, around 2 weeks after it was announced, after it was available. Okay, and I didn't know anything about having to distribute to a smart group or even a static group. You know, I had to get out of that policy mode that I can just push this down to every machine. So even now, if you want to install to one machine, you would have to get a repository, create the repository, create a static group, add that machine, assign that machine, create a smart group that has the computer group criteria in that smart group, and then deploy. That is a lot of steps and is not apparent when you first start to use this. The documentation and the promotion of this is a lot better than what it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. But when we started with this 2 years ago, there was a huge learning curve. And the second thing, the reason I am pleading, begging Jamf engineers for multiple groups is that there are some groups that don't want or can't have their apps auto-updated or patched. I'll give you an example of this. I have some developers that are working in Xcode, and they're working in a very, very specific version of Xcode. And so the only way that I can ensure that their Xcode isn't updated, I basically have to create multiple repositories of the same app, okay, and then scope them out to their own smart group of machines that will not get this updated. Yes, it is a limitation. We hope, we pray that we could get multiple groups so that we don't have 6 or 7 repositories of the same app going down going down the road.
And that is one thing I will actually give a shout out to the Jamf team though. Like it is nice that you can create multiple entries,
Yes.
just like you can with VPP apps. You could have multiple versions in there, you know, depending on who you need to deploy it to. So I mean, at least at the end of the day, we have that option available. But yeah, go upvote Dave's feature request for multiple smart groups within the app catalog. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, as you saw there, very simple for you to deploy an app. Show of hands, is anybody in the room like hesitant about enabling the Jamf app catalog and turning it on in their environment? I know sometimes I have, you know, customers that I talk with, and they're like, I don't want to turn this thing on because I don't want it to affect all my computers. Just so everybody knows, as a Jamf customer, you are entitled to a sandbox environment. So if you don't have a sandbox, reach out to your Jamf account team, whether that be your account executive, your sales engineer, or your customer success manager. We will provide you with a sandbox on request. So that way you could test this out.
Get that sandbox. It's going to save you a lot of pain.
It's just the best practice to have a sandbox and you know, test things out. But that's when I would speak to, you know, at other conferences, I always ask them like, hey, why aren't you using the app catalog? And a lot of times it's, well, I don't know by turning that on if I'm going to affect all my computers. And you know, the short answer to it is no. As long as you don't scope an application to all your computers in your environment, you're not going to. But I totally get it.
and keep in mind, this feature, this app catalog, no other MDM has this. I mean, and if they do, they're only hawking their own products, basically.
Yeah.
This catalog has 100 vendors. It's growing every day. So, and the keynote really addressed this without having to say it, but this is one of the main features that can end any conversations when someone else tries to come in and suggest another MDM for you. This is one of the key features. No other MDM has this. No other feature in an MDM can save this much time and increase this much productivity.
Yeah, I mean, as you saw, there's no app wrapping, there's no uploading of a package, there's no creating a policy or anything like that. We just come in here, we create the software title, and we select deploy, and that's it. It's definitely something that adds a lot of value.
Really, it's the only way to go, because packaging is going to die like imaging, and this is going to replace it.
I think you should buy that domain name if it's available.
Well, but this is to not have to package. There's one more pain point that I want to bring up. Some vendors are not as, for whatever reason, with their relationship with Jamf, they're not able to auto-update, not all of their apps, particularly Adobe Creative Cloud. Another thing, I'm going to, again, blame Adobe for, because that's what we do here in these conferences. If you have add-ins or plugins on a Creative Cloud app, I'm going to give Premiere as an example. We have videographers using Premiere that need the English language pack. So that is an add-in. So are there anybody have access to the Adobe admin console? Show of hands.
A lot of hands.
Yes, yes. Okay. I know you love it as much as I do. So in there, when you create the package, it then gives you the option for any add-ins, and it even gives you options for any third-party plugins. You can include that all in the package. It'll create the package. It'll take about an hour, and it'll take another hour and a half to download. Okay. In the app catalog, you only get the base app. No add-ins, no plugins. And I guarantee you Jamf is sick of hearing from me about this. Because for those users, I can't use the app catalog. I have to go, every time there's an update to Premiere that they want, I have to go create another package in the Adobe console. And I've made it a point never to go into the Adobe console. And that forces me to go back in. So keep in mind that some vendors are doing that within the app catalog because between legal and logistics and everything, whatever the all the relationships with every vendor is different. So what you're going to get is different in terms of, are you going to get a base OS? Are they going to include add-ins? Are they going to give options for those add-ins? Those are all, those are all feature requests that, down the road we hope to have.
Yep. Yeah, good call out and real world example. Cool. With that, we thank you. We're going to open it up for Q&A. Ashley's going to be coming around with the microphone. I see her coming up the middle here. If you just want to raise your hand if you have a question.
Ooh, lots of questions. Here.
Is this on? Yep. Less of a question and more of a thought experiment. Since you can only scope to a specific smart group and you can't schedule, couldn't you create a policy that basically moves computers in and out of a smart group that would then be able to trigger when they can actually do their updates or their installs?
I don't believe so.
So if I had an extension attribute that tagged something in a specific smart group, and I created a policy that either added or removed that extension attribute, and then that smart group was the target of the installer in the app catalog, you could actually move computers in at a specific time. They would then catch that installer, they'd install it, and at a later point you could have it moved out since it doesn't uninstall once it's removed.
Okay.
I've actually seen that work with a scripted EA that adds and removes things to smart groups. It's just, you just have to, it's a lot of work maintaining that, just making sure. I know I can't remember what machine I moved out of a smart group and what machine I moved into a smart group. So it's, and when you have them, when you have the going in and out of smart groups, it doesn't seem, it seems very sensitive to that at times at Jamf. If you have a machine in a smart group, you take it out, or if you have a new machine and you put it back in, it seems like it'll do it, but it seems like it'll complain about it. Like you'll see in progress just a little bit more than you would with an existing machine in a smart group. But that's definitely something that's worth a shot.
Yeah.
Depending on how many endpoints you have and how many smart groups you have.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I've been using App Installers since Jamf bought out Kenobi. And I was looking at Kenobi prior to that, so I was very happy to hear and see that they implemented into Jamf. And so I've had this issue with, I've been more involved in vulnerability management. And so we've gone really, really far as far as patching our Macs. A huge noticeable difference with the Jamf app catalog, especially since it's expanding. There is with this one use case, and I don't know how feasible it is. It's mostly on the development side. And as we all know, development sides, they don't really put applications in the application folder. They put them in various directories. So I'm having to speak to our management and security on patching log4j, patching multiple Java, right? Open JDK, Azul, regular Java. And so I don't know if there's a feasible way or if Jamf is looking into a way to patch those environments, because we all know that Java is very, very vulnerable. Most vulnerabilities come from Java, whether it's OpenJDK or any other type of flavor of Java. And so that's my biggest pain point. I know it's very hard to actually pinpoint that because you have Homebrew that installs it in their seller. You have SDKman that installs it in their portion. And then they also have all the configurations behind that, right? You have, what's the default version of Java? There's multiple versions of Java. So I know it's a huge question, but it's one of the biggest pain points on my end to patch those vulnerabilities.
It is a huge pain point. I hate deploying Java because, and JDK. I have JDK. JDK is in the Jamf App catalog. And And I've run into that. I run into that issue almost every day, that someone has a version that they're either not using or they don't want. That's why I have about 6 or 7 instances of JDK and different versions from the Jamf App Catalog. So yes, it's definitely a pain point, and also with security software. Security software, what's one? Proofpoint DLP. That isn't installed in an application folder. That isn't even installed in the library. Okay, it's installed like in its own folder in the user library. Okay, someplace we would never look. Okay, so those types of apps still we deploy via policy, so that we can then make sure that the location we want it in is going to be in there, and then the app will still work.
Speaking of security, I'm just curious. Raise of hands in the room. Who would love to see some more security tools in the Jamf App Catalog? Okay, cool. So for any Jamfs who are watching this or in the room, take note of that.
That was for me. Okay, I'm going to try to get in 2 more questions before we wrap up.
Hi, thank you. Is there a way to make sure that newly fresh provisioned computers have all the apps that you've scoped? I know that our current procedure, we do a recon to make sure that all those packages are pushed down to the device before we hand it to someone. We don't want to hand a device to someone that's waiting on an app to download 20 minutes or an hour from now.
Sure.
When we're doing 1,000 devices. So.
Yeah, I mean, first thing that I would take advantage of is the self-service onboarding in conjunction with the app catalog. I don't know if you're using the self-service onboarding, but it's a great tool that we announced last year at JNUC. It leverages self-service, and for anybody in the room who got a chance to attend the Self-Service Plus session yesterday, you'll see how the self-service application is evolving.
Sign up for that beta.
Yeah,
okay, sign up.
Yeah, sign up for it, because it's Self-Service Plus is going to really, when you have a computer that is getting automated enrollment into Jamf, there's no third-party tools that are needed to show you the progress of what applications are installing and where they're at. That way your users, they could go ahead and surf the web if they need, but they have it right there showing, hey, Adobe's installing, Outlook's installing, all your core applications are installing. So.
And what we have to do is what you just said. We run a lot of recon commands. Because it's not a policy, there's no triggers. I can't just say do it, recurring check-in or do it on enrollment. I would absolutely have it on enrollment. That way it would be guaranteed. So I mostly, for my base apps, I have all managed devices, or in this case, all managed Macs. And that ensures that machines that get freshly enrolled will eventually get those apps. It's just a question of when.
And we've got one last question.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm deploying Adobe CC23, all the stuff that I can find in the app catalog to Macs. It is my understanding that if I take a static group out of the criteria of that smart group, that Adobe will disappear from that workstation.
It won't.
That's what I was told by Jamf.
It won't disappear. It just won't get updated.
Yeah.
It won't get okay. So that.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood that. I thought it would disappear.
Yeah. No. The app instance. Then the application will stay. It just won't get. It won't get updated.
Yep.
So one more question as the mic's being taken away. What is the best practices between a DMG and a package, which to create for something that's not in the catalog?
PKGs are easier.
And much smarter. You can do more things with them.
Yeah, I mean, a DMG, obviously you gotta either use Composer to go ahead and convert it into a PKG. That takes extra work. Or you could upload the DMG into a policy, then you could have a script extract it. Policies, can just natively digest that package and deploy it without any interaction. So my go-to is PKGs.
Use the package, even if it's a file copy, even if it's literally copying into the application folder, create the package. And in this case, like I'll give you one quick example. We have security software where they don't understand that there's a company called Apple, and so they provide the system extension, but they don't have it installed on default. So I used this Apple package utility to do this, and I just decompress the package, expand the package, change the integer on the system extension from 0 to 1, and then repackage, and then compress that package and upload it. But definitely use package as opposed to disk images. It's a lot easier to deal with, and your installations will go much smoother.
All right, thank you guys for the awesome presentation.
Thank you all for joining. Yeah, we'll be around for a couple of minutes if you have any offline questions. Feel free to test this out. If you have any questions, DERRAD is my Mac admin Slack handle. Adam.derrick@jamf.com is my email address. Feel free to reach out to me. So.
I am at Temple Dave on Slack. I want to thank all of you. This is the greatest community in the world. We're 3,000 strong here. We're tens of thousands that are watching this. Go get your Jamf user groups. I will fly out anywhere and discuss user groups with you. Go on Jamf Nation and use it. It's the best tool. And lastly, go on the Mac Admins Group Slack. Okay? Visit the Mac Admins Foundation table and use that Slack. It has saved lives. Not just careers, but lives.
Yep. Cool. Thank you.